All right. Well, I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safepedia, and really excited to have Paul Leonard with me today to talk a little bit about introduce himself, and then talk a little bit about the Safety on the Edge conference that's coming up in March 2025. Paul, thanks so much for joining today, and kind of turn it over to you to give people a little bit of a background as to who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'm Paul Leonard, Vice President of Safety at Entergy. Entergy is a utility company that serves 3 million customers in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and I'm based here in the Woodlands, Texas. I'm really looking forward to Safety on the Edge. It's getting closer, and it's coming up very quickly. So very excited to be part of that. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody there.
Yeah, it's a exciting event, and maybe talk a little bit about, like, I know you know Malcolm and Corey, and talk a little bit about you know what you think about this Safety on the Edge conference, and how you're hoping that it is maybe different than some of the other conferences out there.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I was contacted by both Corey and Malcolm, separate messages, both very interesting individuals who I've known for quite a while. Malcolm and I met in Paris when I worked for a French company, did a lot of sharing, as sharing is caring, as we like to say. And we used to meet at different conferences. And I like their approach because, I think there are a lot of the same conferences. You hear the same thing from, many different people. And it's like, hey, once I get on the circuit, I can go visit all these nice places and do the same presentation year after year. And I think they're trying to break that trend and have a more, focused learning approach that's not driven by the sponsors. Although we always need sponsors, it's not, time on stage for the different sponsors, but actually good working sessions where I think people are going to get a lot out of it. I'm looking forward to presenting as well as attending several of the other sessions. As I tell my team all the time, I don't know everything, but I know someone who does. And it's only by going to conferences like these that are well managed and good agendas, good workshops, that you get a chance to learn something new and meet new people.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis for sure of I think what they're hoping to accomplish, and how they're going to go about doing things a little differently than maybe some of the other conferences out there. So, what let's talk about what you're going to be presenting at Safety on the Edge. Give people a little bit of background, a little overview, and maybe a few key points they can look forward to.
Sure. I'll be talking in the HRO tract on high reliability organizations. I had a passion for that through operations. I don't just have a safety background; I have a very long operations background in the chemical industry. Fascinated by high reliability organizations and the focus on eliminating unplanned events, as I call it. And my presentation will be on what I call the concept of cathedral thinking. So what is cathedral thinking? Well, I mean, cathedral thinking is really a concept that's inspired, by the construction of medieval cathedrals, which spanned generations and required quite a lot of meticulous planning, with a solid foundation and a very big commitment and visionary leadership. Because if you take, recently, we're in December today, and recently Notre Dame was opened back up again. I think it's been in the news globally. I lived in Paris for 8 years. I visited Notre Dame over 100 times. Fascinated by that too. It took 180 years to build. What they've just done now in 5 years after the fire, they've recreated it and managed to do that in 5 years. But that took too a lot of vision, a lot of leadership, a lot of focus, and a lot of commitment. And we see the outcome today. So for me, if you're trying to build a different culture or high reliability organization, you've got to take a long-term view. It's all about that, having the visionary leadership to be able to do that, because like with the cathedrals, the person who laid the groundstone, the first stone in the cathedral, when it took 180 years to build, they didn't see the finished product. So we need to learn how to take a long-term view, build a very strong foundation. I say our foundation, we have a very strong cultural foundation based on values, based on trust, based on transparency. You'll hear a lot of, I'll give a lot of examples in my presentation of different tools that are available to help with that. Then you continue on with leadership, and I'll talk about authentic leadership. Learning is a huge part of it, because just as they were building the cathedral, the guy who started it had to pass on his concept to somebody else. And so learning was key. And then ultimately I'll build up to how do we talk about high reliability organizations, and how the foundation and everything else leads to that. The cathedral I use in my presentation is one from Strasbourg, where I also lived for 8 years. So a cathedral I'm very familiar with. And the unique thing about that cathedral is that it has only one spire. The second spire was never constructed. So I used that too in my presentation to talk about, okay, what are we going to build with this second spire? Where do we go next? And in this case, I'll be talking about, okay, for me, I think one of the next steps in safety is all around neuroscience. How does the brain function? I think if we can teach people how their brain functions and why they do the things that they do, that's going to help them make better decisions to stay safe. So that's sort of setting up sort of the next stage. How do we complete the cathedral? Asking the question, are you working on your cathedral? Have you started your cathedral today? And I don't want to give away the quote I have at the end, but it really is focused on the long term.
Yeah, no, I love that thinking too, because it's so often it's quarter to quarter or annual planning, maybe 5-year planning at the longest. But to think about something that's gonna last generations and outlive
Yeah,
you, potentially is a really different way to go about it. And I love the cathedral examples, and you can just imagine, like you say, 180 years, what people were thinking initially versus the planning and the process once you get closer to completion after that long.
yeah, and people often ask me, what will I get out of it? I said, well, at a minimum, you're going to learn a whole lot more about cathedrals than you knew when you woke up this morning. You learn why you'll need to take a long-term view if you're, long-term approach in strategy setting. I'll have some examples of different tools that I've picked up over my 40 years in the industry, that hopefully can help people, because, as we say, sharing is caring. And then there's, the maybe awake some people's interest in the impact of neuroscience and what they can do then going forward, and how it can improve their operations, when they leave the conference.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Well, thanks so much, Paul, for joining today. I'm really looking forward to meeting you at Safety on the Edge in March 2025. We'll have the link below in the description for anybody who hasn't registered yet to get signed up, so that they can come and learn about cathedrals and learn about cathedral thinking.
Really looking forward to it. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.